Hi everyone. Hi. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if the volume's okay, and everything is working. Hi everyone. Welcome in. Happy time zone wherever you are. Morning, afternoon. Oh, good. Hi Bailey. Hi Jack Toy. Hi Skogsy. McPenthusiast. Morning. Hi everyone. Hi. I have my second coffee, so I'm good. Grab your favorite drink, grab some water. We're gonna have some fun today. Lovely Wednesday here. It's nice here too. I'm happy because in British Columbia we have a lot of rain and we're kind of going into spring, which is rainy season, constant rain, and it's kind of blah, cloudy, gray. But today it's kind of nice out. So the sun's out, which means we can be sunny and happy. Hello, hi. Hi, Kgat. Hi. Hello, everyone. We were just negative temps all last week. Finally in the positive temps. Oh, I feel you. I feel you. When the sun's out and it's mild, I feel like things just seem so much easier. And you don't have to wear all those layers. And yeah, I get you. I get it. We're having unseasonably nice weather in New Jersey. Oh, good. That's always nice. Yes, it's cold on the East Coast. I lived in Toronto for a long time, Ontario, Canada. And yeah, I'm used to cold, freezing, snowy temperatures. It's a little bit nicer here in British Columbia. It's not as frigid, but it does get very rainy, so... Yeah, that's nice. 2 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that's always fun. We're like, yes, it's spring, it's summer. Good morning, Olive Octopus. You have a giant Relay St. Jude faux Stanley full of tea. Yes, let's go. That's the spirit. Let's go. Okay, Gad, you're in Ontario right now. It snows a lot here. Are you visiting? Yeah, it's constant snow, and like the worst is when you're there and you get to experience like when the ice like it's icy and it's snowy, and then you get ice on your eyebrows just from walking outside. Like your eyebrows freeze, your nose hairs freeze. I love Ontario, but it's tough. My entire backyard is ice. Oh, Bailey, yeah. You get your skates out, start playing hockey. I'm planning on moving here, but oh, it's so cold. Ice, yeah, ice on your eyebrows. It doesn't happen often. Like that is kind of how extreme it can get, but it is very cold throughout winter. And by winter, I mean like into June. But it's good. It's fine. You know, when you're around everyone who's kind of like accepted that's the climate and that's the, you know, this is what you do in wintertime, you kind of make the most of it. So play with the snow, go skating. And the summers are amazing. Like patio weather, which is, you know, when you sit outside and you're just enjoying on like, you know, patios, it's so much fun. I will say that. As soon as it's patio weather, great. I'm all for it. It is short though. Yeah, it's summer in Canada is pretty short, but you opened windows yesterday because it was over 70 Fahrenheit. 1 week ago there was snow and high below freezing. Yeah, you've been getting some snow too, Olive Octopus. Opening the window and getting some fresh air is like airing out the house. It's important. It was frozen on the start screen, so I had to restart the app. Okay, you're good, Skogsy? Is it okay now? Okay, good. Yeah, try restarting. Try refreshing. Good afternoon, Wind, Water, and Flow. It's warmer here in NJ for sure, but you're still cold. Yeah, you know, once you're into like spring and summer, I feel like it's just warmer. It just feels warmer. Even if it might be a little bit warm now, it's still winter. We have about 9 months of winter. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's winter, spring, and like 2 weeks of summer, and then you're right into fall, which is like only a few weeks, and then you're straight into winter. You get to do outdoor ice skating here in the winter. Oh yeah, Inky biostatistician. Hi. I know it's like biostatistician. Does anyone actually pronounce that correctly, or is that like a tongue twister? You got outdoor ice skating here this winter. It's a rarity. Oh, but it's so much fun, right? Yeah. And you get like a hot chocolate afterwards and warm up. Oh, it's so fun. Yeah, it's not too cold there. Oh, that's awesome. Wind, water, and flow. Good. It's always nice when it's warmer out. Yeah. I'm in Bergen County, but near upstate New York. Okay. Cool, cool. Hi, Jesse. Hi. Welcome in. Welcome. Happy Wednesday. Happy middle of the week. Hopefully you have nice weather, which is what we're talking about, but it's a lot of syllables. I know, you know, and it's like you're trying to like say it really fast and make it sound smooth as well, which is a bad combo. Never happens. Okay. Well, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining. And thanks for spending your Wednesday morning, afternoon, whatever your time zone is with me. And we're going to have some fun today. As you can see, I have a few things that I wanted to talk about and share with you and get your thoughts too. If you've used glass tip pens, for example, and how you use them and what you think about them. About me, let's see if it works. Yeah, hi, I'm Corolla. I'm a stationery and fountain pen enthusiast, so I love all things stationery. I love planning, I love journaling, I love painting with fountain pen inks and drawing with them. So we are going to be drawing today a little bit. And I love sharing my process because I truly believe that everyone can be creative and everyone has an artist in them, whether or not you believe that. But I think tapping into that creative side is really important because it's a way to relax, it's a way to be mindful, and it's just a way to have fun and bring out some joy. So that's what we're going to do today. And yeah, feel free to have me on in the background or join in, throw things into the chat if you have questions or just thoughts or your experiences. I'd love to see that. New pen day for you, Indy. What pen did you get? Did I miss that? Corolla, did you figure out the answer to the purple plotter problem? Is it a problem? Or is it just a little bit of fun? Yeah. Yeah, we want to know what pen you got, Indy. You had 2 new pens this week, Jesse. What pens did you get? It's a Pilot, and I got a Diamond ink to go with it. Yay, Indy, I love Pilot. Good choice. And which Diamond? Yeah. No, it's not a problem. The purple plotter problem, PPP, is it's actually a good problem to have. The square plotter from California Pen Show. If you didn't know, plotter has different sizes, obviously, but they don't have the square size available on their online store. But they do have it at certain events sometimes. So it's kind of like an event limited thing in North America. So at the California Pen Show, a few of us, Wind, Water, and Flow, and a few people, including me, got the square purple plotter. And I don't know if anyone actually got it with an intent to use it for something specific. But I had my eye on a Mini 5 for a little while, but I decided that it was a little bit too small for me, for just my daily use. I know you can use it as a wallet and other things, or for notes and things like that. But I just felt like, I don't know, it was a little too small for me to just use it constantly and get the most out of it. So I didn't get it. And then at the show, like other people, I decided that the purple was just gorgeous. So actually, let me show it to you. So this is the purple square plotter. Right? And it's gorgeous. And still trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to use it for, but I like the size of it for like note taking. So I already did a few things, Wind, Water, and Flow. I'll give you a little a little tour. So I cut this out. It's the Coffee Monsters Co. just sort of like a cardboard. I think she used it in some orders last year. Anyways, so I cut that out to square, and then I put this adhesive that you can put like stickers and things like that in here. And then for now, I'm just kind of doing notes. So I'm like planning out like the fountain pens I'm going to ink up in March and what I'm going to retire and things like that. So that's it for now. But I'm thinking like great for notes, great for portability. Yeah. You're using it for notes, Wind, Water, and Flow? Have you solved the problem as well? Okay. Ooh, comments. Okay, I just ordered first plotter McPenthusiast. Ooh, yes. The only thing to do is embrace the problem. And because you can use it for pretty much anything, right? Like the flexibility, depending on the size, the portability. I mean, it's a good problem to have. Oh, Indy, you got a Pilot Kakuno and Memory Lane ink. That's awesome. I love Kakunos, by the way. They're solid. Yeah, I agree, Bailey. And others. Jesse, you got an Esterbrook Raven. Ooh, inked with oxblood. Nice. And an Elwood Pocket Master. I don't think I know what that looks like. In copper with Butcher's Broom ink. Awesome. Yeah, it's a great color, isn't it, Jesse? Yeah. Yeah, send me a photo of your setup. I'd love to see. I love seeing how people use, obviously we all love seeing how people use their planners and their journals, but I love seeing how people use it in like their daily lives and how they kind of, you know, make the most of their planners and journals and things, just because it's inspiring. And then I get little ideas that I can use as well. Yeah. Awesome. By the way, Jesse, you mentioned the Esterbrook Raven inked with oxblood ink. So for March, I'm thinking of inking up my Raven with, my go-to is Diamine Writer's Blood. So the Raven and Writer's Blood ink for me is like, I love that combination. So in my currently inked for next month, you'll see. Okay, keep chatting. I'll check in on the comments, but let me get started and we'll just kind of like talk about glass dip pens. I'll show you, you know, drawing with them and things like that. And we'll kind of keep chatting about stuff. Don't give in to the plotter hype, Bailey. I know, but every time we talk about plotter, I feel like we're chipping away a little bit. I'm just kidding. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to talk about glass dip pens in general is because I did a YouTube video a couple of years ago about glass dip pens. And since then, I've wanted to update that video with just like a little bit more experience and share how I've been using them. And also since then, I got a new glass dip pen. I got this last year, so it's been a little while since, you know, I've talked about glass dip pens. And I feel like if you're into fountain pen inks and you're into drawing or trying out different tools, especially if you're into fountain pens, I feel like glass dip pens are just kind of an extension of that. And they can be useful for different reasons that you may use fountain pens for. And so we'll kind of chat about that and take a look at them. And I'll show you the ones that I have as well. And then the other reason why I wanted to talk about glass dip pens is because I was looking at the San Francisco Pen Show vendor list, which has been updated. They're still updating it with more vendors, but so far, the vendors that they have on there look great. Like, it's a great vendor list. And I'm planning to go to the San Francisco Pen Show, so if you're going, then that's awesome. But one of the vendors at the SF Pen Show is Glass Studio Aun. And they were there last year, and this is where I got AUN. So this is where I got this glass tip pen. And probably a lot of people got glass tip pens because they sold out in like the first few hours of the first day. So that's how fast the product moved. And they're going to be here this year as well. And then I also saw another glass studio was going to be there. And also Glassify. I think a few people mentioned them as well. And they had these cute fox art pieces, really. Like that's what they are, right? Art pieces. And so, yeah, so I looked at the vendor list and I thought, oh, it's great timing. We'll talk about glass tip pens. And it's something that I would recommend looking into if you are into, you know, trying out different tools for drawing, writing. And yeah, and if you're going to a pen show and they have glass tip pens, don't be afraid to look at them and consider getting a glass tip pen if you're wanting to try one. So that's why I kind of wanted to chat about glass tip pens, just in terms of like, you know, how I'm using them, but also timing wise for pen shows and events where there might be glass studios. And I think it's worth taking a look at and considering. Bailey, my glass tip pen chipped. Can it be salvaged? Okay, it depends on the chip. And we'll talk a little bit about the fragility of glass tip pens, but it depends on the chip. And it depends on where the chip, like where it sort of broke off. So if it was just a little bit of the tip, what you could potentially do is take a micro sandpaper. And in the Herbin box, they actually include like this little piece of micro sandpaper. And so if you need to kind of smooth out the tip, that might be something you can try. But if you have chipped it, the other thing also I will say is if you get a glass tip pen from a studio where an artist makes the glass tip pen and also sort of customizes the tip to the glass tip pen, sometimes what they will let you bring their glass tip pen back to them if something has happened. Either ship it or, you know, if you see them in person, and they will take care of it for you. So I know Glass Studio Aun, I don't remember the name of the designer, but they did mention that if something happened to their glass tip pen, to bring it back to them and they will take care of it for you. So it just kind of depends on where you got it from, where the chip is, whether or not you can fix it yourself, or if it's something that you need to kind of cry over and replace. But there may be something that you could do. It just depends. Yeah, Jack Toy Glassify. Oh, gorgeous. If you see these vendors at events or pen shows, they are worth checking out. They're honestly pieces of art. So beautiful. Yeah, I'll see you at the SF Pen Show if you're going. Skogsy, you didn't understand the plotter hype for a long time, and now you have a second and third. Yeah, Tal Bailey. We have a few. Once you're into one plotter, it's easy to... Same, I would say, with glass tip pens. If you're into beautiful glass pieces or like beautiful sort of tools, I would say having one glass tip pen is kind of a slippery slope into getting more glass pieces. So like Glassify, for example, if you haven't seen on Instagram, they have like foxes and other sort of pieces of art that they create out of glass. And then at the tip is like a glass tip pen sort of tip that you can potentially write with. I don't know if it's comfortable to hold. I don't have one, but they do look really, really cute. Testing them out for sure was helpful to see how they wrote. Yeah, I love that you could do that at a show or an event. You didn't know what size you would like best. Yeah, so, oh, sorry, Bailey. A little bit of the tip, you might be able to smooth it out. Try that. But yeah. Wind, water, and flow, you have a chip in an inexpensive glass pen that wasn't really fixable to use as a writing instrument. But it makes cool looking at... Yeah, so it's still worth keeping a glass tip pen that has a chip. Yeah, again, depending on where the chip is, or if it's sort of like, cracks at a slant or something, you could smooth that out. And then now it's like, like a slanted, cursive italic type of nib or a stub nib or, like don't count them out just because I know it's sad when you like chip something like that, but it may be salvageable. Quinny, thank you so much for following. Welcome in. Okay, so we have just started to talk about glass dip pens, and let me know if you've used them or you've tried them. And I do love that if you go to pen shows or an event, like Jack Toy said, if you go to like the table of a glass studio, they should have testers out or pens that you could try, and they'll have various tips to those glass pens. And then you can try it out and see. And if you didn't know that there were different tips to glass dip pens, I didn't know for the longest time. I thought, if you got a glass dip pen, then it just had like, a tip and you just kind of like learned how to use it. But then once I started looking into glass dip pens, I realized there's a whole, world out there in terms of how people are using glass dip pens, and also the artistry that goes into making glass dip pens. And also that you could get different tips depending on your writing style. So we're talking about like custom ground nibs for fountain pens. Glass dip pens are similar. So you can get different tips, and you can also customize it to, what sort of feels comfortable to you to write with. So, what I'm going to talk about before we talk about the glass dip pens actually is I'm just going to mention the inks that I'm going to use and the paper, and then we'll get into it. So the fountain pen inks I'll draw with and I'll show you. I got this sample from Galen at Fountain Pendulum, and she also makes these really nice wood pieces. And this one is an ink stabilizer. So if you have an ink sample and you don't want it to fall over, great to put in there. But she let me try some inks, and this is one that I've heard a lot about. I don't have a bottle or a sample of it, so I got a sample of it, Sailor Afternoon Tea. So I'm excited to try that out and swatch it. And then there are two inks. So these are new to me inks in February, so that's why I'm gonna swatch them today and draw with them. And then I got 2 bottles of inks from Ferris Wheel Press this month that I still haven't swatched or used. So we'll have some fun with this. This is called Blue Revelry, and this is a shimmer ink. It's for their 15th anniversary. And it's a blue with a duochrome shimmer. So I think it's like a pink and green shimmer. So we'll see. And then the third one we'll try is just a standard ink, also from Ferris Wheel Press, called Book of Botany, and it's a nice green ink. So I love greens for drawing and painting with because they're great for drawing flowers, leaves, foliage, that kind of thing. And then I love painting and drawing with shimmer inks because they are just so much fun. So we're gonna do that, and I will tell you a disclaimer or just something to keep in mind with shimmer inks and pigment or like waterproof or really dark inks. Just be aware that because of the grooves that are in the glass dip pen, shimmers, depending on how big the particles are, may get stuck in the grooves. Also, glitter gets everywhere, right? We all know that. So just be aware of that when you're washing out your glass dip pen, that some of the glitter or shimmer may be stuck in the grooves. Not a big deal. But also dark inks, they may stain your glass. So this one is like it's transparent, right? So I don't know if you can see sort of a line there, but that's from just like using really dark inks. And depending on your glass dip pen, it may not be a big deal. But if you spend a lot of money on a glass dip pen, it's just something to keep in mind. Sorry. I'm finding that to be an issue with the Kakimori nib. Bailey, the glitter sticking in the groove. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, for it may not be a big deal. Or what you could potentially do is have glass dip pens that are like, one is for like your glittery inks, your shimmery inks, or like your darker pigment inks. I wouldn't say don't use them, you know, have fun, but yeah, it's just kind of be aware of that. And then if you're putting, you know, if you're using a shimmer ink and then you're using a standard ink, just be aware maybe you'll get some shimmer in there as well. You enjoyed yours before it broke, Bailey? Yeah, it is really fun. It is really fun. So we'll see. We'll have some fun. Yeah, it's fun to see glitter in other inks that weren't intentionally there. And I have done that before. Like, for example, when I paint with inks, I painted with shimmer inks before. And then when I start painting with a standard ink, I'm kind of like, wait, was this a shimmer ink? And it wasn't. It's just the shimmer that's like, you know, passing over from paintbrush to paintbrush or from pen to pen. And that happens regardless of what you use. Shimmer will get into it and will never leave. Okay, so those are the inks that I'm using. What I typically do with a brand new ink that I get is let me just move it out of the way. I usually transfer some of the ink into a small ink vial. So that's what I do for most of the new ink bottles that I get. And that's just a way for me to remember to play with them and to paint with them and not have to keep dipping or going into the bottle itself, especially when you're using dip pens and you're kind of like dipping, you know, over and over. I personally wouldn't want to transfer like shimmer particles and things like that directly into another bottle of ink. And so that's kind of what I do. And then I also use my plotter Bible. Another reason to use a plotter is to swatch my inks. So it's my ink directory. I got this idea from Julia. Hi Julia. Hi, I'm Julia, I think is her handle on Instagram. But yeah, she did a video on like doing an ink directory. Highly recommend it because it got me using my plotter Bible as an ink directory. And so yeah, it's just kind of fun. And then I number the ink vials. Okay, the paper I'm going to use. So paper is kind of, not kind of, it's important, right? For fountain pens, for glass dip pens. And so the paper that I use with glass dip pens tend to be like fountain pen friendly, Tomoe River paper, great for it. I also use bank paper. So anything that's kind of, you know, it's smooth, it's great for inks. And remember, you're moving glass on paper, so you don't want it to be too textured because the glass nib might catch on it. And then I also, usually what I do is with new inks, I swatch them in my hobbies journal. This is my hobbies journal for this year. And so like, this is sort of where I swatch inks to as I get them. And so that's what I'm going to do with these new inks is I'm going to, and this is TRP Sanzen. So that's what I'm going to use. And then I'll show you what it would look like on bank paper. This actually reminds me, Yamamoto is where I got this writing pad from. I got it at the SF Pen Show last year, and they will also be a vendor at this year's Pen Show. As far as I know on the site it says. So if you want different types of paper pads with fountain pen friendly paper, I do recommend these types of paper pads. So yay, that's the paper. Wind, Water, and Flow. I heard Plotter site is doing another refresh before the end of March. So hopefully I'll get the Bible and Horsehair 2 green. Oh, has it been sold out? Okay, the green is a really nice color. It is really, really nice. I was very tempted to get the green over the brown that I got, but yeah, it's very nice. Hi, Mehmet. Hi. How are you doing? I'm good. I'm good. Welcome in. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Yeah. It's fun to see glitter. I know. So, so that's the paper I'm going to use. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the glass dip pens. So I have 3 here. I actually have 3 in total. I have them here. And I may be getting another one at the SF Pen Show because I am in love with these ones. So yeah, just a spoiler on that. Okay, so I first got into glass tip pens probably 4 years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago actually. I got my first glass tip pen. It's a cheap glass tip pen from a place where you can get cheap stuff. And as you can see, there's staining on the tip itself from just use over time, you know, and the different types of inks that I draw with, which is fine. And the other thing is it's great, like it looks fine, you know, but because it has this sort of swirl to it, it's not that comfortable to hold. And that's something I didn't realize when I got my first glass tip pen, is I kind of looked at it online and I thought, oh, it looks great, like, you know, I like it. I just wanted to try them out anyways. And so the one thing I didn't really consider was how it would feel when you're writing with it. So that's something to try out if you have the opportunity to try out different glass tip pens. And the other thing is just to keep in mind the sort of the nib part itself. So this part. This is a long design, so it's actually quite handy if you're dipping into an ink vial that's long and narrow. So if you're using a sample ink or something like that. There are different shapes, obviously. So this one is a little bit more like a teardrop shape. And then this one is also a different shape. So things to consider when you're looking at glass tip pens, I would say, is probably, you know, how it would sort of fit in your hand. So where is the grip? You know, how are you going to hold it? And then probably also the nib, the shape of it, how much ink it might hold. And that's something you can talk to with the artist at a glass tip studio, is how much ink it will hold, and also the nib tip. So when I bought this, I don't think it really said what the tip was. I think it's like a fine or something. But yeah, I initially got it just because I wanted to try it out. And for what it's worth, I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money on glass tip pens to have fun with them, to try them out. But, you know, just keep those things in mind. And also they may be easier to crack depending on how they're constructed. Hi, Gama Gama. Have fun lurking. All good, all good. Which pen do you prefer for EDC? You're making a leather notebook cover for a friend and it's difficult to decide the size of pen loop. Okay, ballpoints are very thin. Yes, yes, yes. So it's kind of like pen loops they do depend on the kind of pen that you're going to use, right? So a ballpoint pen loop is not going to be great for a fountain pen. So I would say, like, everyone's favorite EDC will vary. For me, it's like, I like pocket pens. So like a Kaweco sort of small style. But I also like having a cigar shaped fountain pen for long writing sessions. So think of like Esterbrook Esty or like a Pilot. And so I kind of like the extra large pen loops that allow for an Esty shaped pen. Because I sort of vary between what I carry in my notebook. And if it's something that I want it to be portable, it will probably be like a pocket pen. But if it's something with a notebook where I'm doing journaling or longer writing sessions, then I tend to use a bigger pen. So something like an Esty. But the thing with pen loops is that if you can fit an average fountain pen into it, then that's probably the way to go, I would say. But, you know, there are oversized pens and things like that. So what's a good starter cheap glass tip pen? Yeah, KGAT. So this is the pen that I got as a starter. It was cheap. It was like under $20 Canadian, which is even cheaper in US. This was my second glass tip pen, and it's a J. Herbin glass tip pen. We know they make great inks. And so they also make a line of glass tip pens. And I believe it's this, this model, like the style, but in different colors. So this was something I ordered from a local stationery shop. And this was sort of my like leveling up, like stepping up a little bit to try, you know, what a glass tip pen from an ink brand would be like. And I have to say, like, this is sort of like a mid-range. I think it was like 40 Canadian, less in USD. And so it's not like super expensive in terms of like a glass tip pen, but it's also like I felt it's more comfortable holding it, writing with it, or drawing with it. I like the teardrop design. I think it's you know, it holds quite a bit of ink. So this is a great glass tip pen too, in terms of like just getting into glass tip pens. And I do use the back of it for swatching. So for example, if you get, if you want to swatch an ink, you can use the back of it to do a swatching line, and then you can use the nib to write the ink. So it's kind of handy in that way. And then I mentioned before, they include this sort of micro sandpaper, because I have had a few issues with just it feeling a little scratchy. And so they include the sandpaper just to kind of smoothen it out, which, you know, like maybe over time as you're using it, it is glass. So maybe you're sort of scratching it depending on the paper you're using. And so smoothening it out just a little bit might be helpful, and maybe also the angle that you're holding it at. So, I mean, it's kind of a good glass tip pen to have in your collection if you're kind of just like, you know, taking it out for a quick writing or drawing or swatching session. The Herbin looks really neat. Yeah. Yeah, so I actually got this at Paper Plus Cloth, which is in Toronto. So I ordered it online, and I actually think they, specifically Paper Plus Cloth, they have the Tiranishi guitar glass tip pens, I think. I think I saw that online. So they may have a variety of glass tip pens to choose from. And yeah, I mean, you know, take a look at the price point, obviously, depending on your budget. And then take a look at how the glass tip pen is constructed, and just kind of, you know, in terms of the design and how you think it would feel to hold. And if you can try it, all the better. But those are just some things to consider. So, you know, a cheap sort of glass tip pen is fine for something quick, you know, if you want to do a swatch and then you kind of want to just write. And then something a little bit more mid-range just gives you a little bit more of a feel for a glass tip pen. And then when you're ready, then you can move on to, you know, a bespoke piece of art glass tip pen. And I'm not saying you have to, or, you know, it's something that everyone needs or anything like that. But if you are in, like, if you do start using glass tip pens and you find them fun and you end up, you know, using them and think you will continue to use them, I feel like the experience will only be elevated by getting a bespoke, handmade, you know, one of these types of glass tip pens, because a lot of thought is put into the design of it, not just, you know, the glass itself and how it's constructed, but also the nib part, like the grooves, how much ink this would hold, the tip, what size the tip is, and you can choose from a variety of them. And the other thing I will also say is, in terms of construction, the writing experience of, you know, a higher end or a handmade glass pen like this is very comfortable. So as you can see, there's no sort of, you know, there's no like grooves or things like that, like swirls or anything here that would make it uncomfortable for me to hold. as like compared to this type of design, which is still nice. But when you're holding it for, you know, longer writing sessions or drawing sessions, it might become uncomfortable if, you know, it's constructed in a different way. And so just holding this is very, very comfortable to me. Not only that, but staring at it because it's so pretty. Of the entry-level ones, I've tried the Teranishi glass pens. They're serviceable to both the capped and traditional style. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the Teranishi glass pens, I haven't tried, but I have heard that they're good to use, right? So it's worth trying them out. And oh yeah, KCAT, yes. So if you can visit Toronto, go to Paper Plus Cloth and take a look at their glass dip pens and other things, stationery and things like that. The other note too for glass dip pens is they're hard to find in Canada in terms of like bespoke glass studios. It's not like, you know, in Japan, a lot of people use glass dip pens. It's kind of like one of those things they do for calligraphy, for writing, for drawing, for whatever uses. So everyone sort of, you know, is like aware of glass dip pens, has seen them, and most people use them. But in North America, it's not so common, right? Like it's not so popular to be using a glass dip pen. And so it's kind of hard to find glass studios or bespoke glass dip pens. I have found in British Columbia, there's a stationery shop called Buchan's, and they actually source glass dip pens from a local artist who makes them by hand, and they are gorgeous. Obviously the price also reflects like that it's handmade, it's made of glass, and they're one of a kind pieces, right? They really are a piece of art. So if you can find, you know, glass studios or they're in a local store, definitely take a look at them. They're worth considering as a writing tool. Okay, so this one, as I mentioned, I got from Glass Studio Aun at the SF Pen Show last year, and I did test out their different nib types. And so they had testers that you could try, and I got the medium. So for me, I felt like I love broad nibs in fountain pens, and a broad nib in a glass dip pen was like ink was just everywhere. And I tend to write slowly with glass dip pens. So for me, the medium was a great size, but you can obviously get, you know, finer lines, you can get stubs, and just, yeah, like really fun nibs, really fun tips, sorry, for glass dip pens. And yeah, so I tried them out, and then by the time I went back to their table to grab a glass dip pen, I was waiting in line with Olive Octopus ink. And when I got to the table to be able to choose a pen, there were literally like 5 choices. So they had sold out of most of their glass dip pens by then, and then sold out really, really quickly. So this is something that price-wise and nib size or tip-wise was something that I wanted to try out. And so, yeah, I got it. But yeah, obviously, you know, you can get different designs, different sizes, different tip size. The other thing I will also mention, because they are glass and we don't want to break them, when you're drawing with glass dip pens or you're using them for inks and stuff, and I would always suggest having a plastic cup of water to get the ink off of the nib. That way you lower the chances of staining the tip or the glass. And also, you don't want to chip your glass dip pen in a water bottle that's made of, or like a bottle that's made of glass full of water. So rinsing your nib, I think, is important, but also try and use a plastic cup if you can. Hi, Beaveroni. Hi, Jessica. Hi, just dropping in during work to say hi. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hi, hope everything's going well. Hope you're feeling better. Yeah, hope you're enjoying your day. When I go to Minneapolis, I have to see if wet paint has any. Now I'm curious. Yeah, so when you go to a stationery shop, take a look at their, like, if it's a bespoke glass tip pen or just any glass tip pen, really, they might have it behind, you know, like behind the counter or in, you know, glass shelf or something like that. So take a look there and see, and also talk to them. I was talking to the fine people at Buchan's about glass tip pens, and they had mentioned that they're working with a local artist to source them, and they sell out really quickly too. So if you don't find them there, maybe talk to them about it and see if that's something that they have on order or that they're working with to stock. Because when glass tip pens are available, even at pen shows, apparently they go quickly because they're not as common in North America. So when, you know, when people get into them, it's like, yeah, I need to have one. So here's a cheap one from, yeah. The place where you can get cheap things sometimes. It's nothing special. It's the same thing with this one, right? It's nothing special compared to this, right? But it does the job, I find. And this is great for like inks and like shimmery inks, pigment inks, things like that. They, like, I don't mind that it's stained, right? Like, I don't mind. It doesn't, I'm not sad about that. But I would be sad if something happened to this and if it sort of took away from the design of the pen itself. So yeah, it's like, it might be actually worth having a cheap glass tip pen that you could use for inks that you're not sure about, or if you're just kind of grabbing it to use quickly. It might be something you just have on hand. Spend less money up front. Exactly, right? Like, you don't have to go high end right away, especially if you're trying it out for the first time. Okay, so let's do a little bit of drawing. And I'm going to show you how each pen writes. So we'll get a little feel for like the cheap, the medium cheap, mid-range, and then a little bit higher end and not so cheap. And kind of compare writing and drawing with each. Let me just put this here. So let's see. I'm going to actually dedicate a glass tip pen for each ink. So this is the green standard. This is the shimmery Ferris wheel press one. And this one is, I think I'm going to do it this way. There we go. And then this one is Sailor Afternoon Tea. So hi, Fountain Pen News. Hi. The Fonte glass pens from Yosica are also not bad at all. Yeah. So I haven't tried the Fonte glass pens, but I did see they're nibs, right? And they come with like a plastic sort of holder. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's worth, and the other thing too is like, depending on what you want to use it for, I think, you know, the cheaper glass tip pens are great for like quick sessions, right? If you're drawing something quick, doodling or swatching, I think the cheaper ones are great. The more expensive and high range glass tip pens are great for writing sessions, like if you're writing a letter or you're actually practicing like hand lettering. I'm a big fan of hand lettering and brush lettering. And so having a glass tip pen that, you know, gives you a great writing experience when you're doing that kind of practice, I think is important as well. So something to keep in mind. Oh, yeah, Inky. I have a few different inexpensive ones. And while the Fonte isn't the best writer, the ease of having a cap for protection. Yeah, a lot of glass tip pens don't have caps because, you know, you're obviously just getting like a glass tip pen. So storing them, I put them back into their boxes because they're nice and cushioned. Sometimes I will just put it on one of these like pen holders. But for my Glass Studio Aun glass dip pen, I use this rubber tip that they include with it because I don't want to chip it. So it's kind of cool if you have a protective cover for it, or if it comes with a cap. So this is the J.R. Bond glass dip pen, and as you can see, it actually, like, it fits it in the sample vial, except for this part, which is, you know, just a little bit too wide to go all the way in. That's fine. You just kind of tip it. But it's just something, like, these things are things to consider. Okay, so this, if you want to get the ink flowing a little bit, you do have to make sure that you have sort of ink in the grooves, and then you have ink at the top. And then once you get the ink flowing, it should be, there we go. Just angle it a little bit. Once you get the ink flowing, it should just continue to flow. So depending on your glass dip pen, it will sort of dictate how much ink it will hold in the grooves. And I find the glass dip pens actually hold a lot of ink. So you can sort of, you know, keep coloring, you can shade with them, and sort of adjust your writing angle, and also sort of, as I'm getting ink on my fingers, it's all good. And I would also rotate the glass dip pen as you write, just to get a little bit of the, you know, ink around the grooves. So this is Sailor Afternoon Tea. It's a really nice color. It's like a brown, like a burnt brown, burnt orange. It puts down a lot of ink too. I think this nib would probably, or tip size would probably be like a fine. And it's very smooth to write with. Like I said, I have used the micro sandpaper to sort of smoothen it out sometimes when I feel it catching on the paper a little bit. And for me, it hasn't really been an issue. So that is something to keep in mind. If you feel like there's feedback or a little scratchiness that you don't really like, you could smoothen it out. Yeah, Biberoni. It isn't as good as the Aun. Yeah, for a quick swatch, it's, especially if like you're just kind of interested in glass dip pens and you just want to try them out, finding the cheaper alternatives is worth it, right? Like trying it out with a cheaper one just to see if you like it, and probably feeling comfortable with using glass dip pens before you splurge on a more expensive and well-crafted one where you're kind of, you feel like you need to treat it even more precious, right? And glass dip pens are already a big risk. Like you're risking it by using a glass dip pen just because of how fragile and the fact that it could break, it could chip, it could, you know, just, yeah, it's very finicky that way. So going with a cheap alternative first to try it out, and also having one on hand for when you're swatching or trying inks and just having a little bit of fun, then you don't really have to worry about anything happening to it, right? So that's the J.R. Bond. Actually, before I put this away, I'll do it on bank paper as well, just for fun and just to show you different papers. And so it started a lot easier, a lot faster when I started drawing on the bank paper. Just interesting. And now it's not. There we go. And just like a fountain pen, remember, you don't have to press down hard. You don't have to grip it too hard. It is kind of, you know, just figure out where you sort of want to hold it, where it feels comfortable, but it should be able to glide and give you that smooth experience. So just kind of get that ink off. So you love the sound of glass tip. Yes, the sound of glass pens and the feel of it too, like when you're writing with it and it just glides. Oh, it's like writing with a fountain pen nib that, you know those smooth fountain pen nibs where you're just like gliding over paper? That's what a smooth glass tip pen feels like. And that's what it should feel like, I think. You just get that smoothness. Ink is flowing great. And yeah, it feels great. It sounds amazing. So this is on the bank paper, and then this is on TRP. Pretty similar. I did feel that it was smoother on the bank paper, and I think it's just because of the coating on bank paper. But I felt like they were both really, really nice writing experiences. Yeah, it's so satisfying. Oh, looks like the store in Minneapolis just has Mahjong glass pens. So I haven't tried those, but yeah, I mean, you know, it's worth trying out ones just to see how they write and compare to others. And so that's the Herbin one. And next I will use the Ferris Wheel Press Shimmery ink. Shimmer inks are great to use with glass dip pens, depending on, like we sort of chatted about this, but because the shimmer may get stuck in the grooves, I do like using one of the cheaper glass dip pens for my shimmers sometimes, because I'm not so finicky about, you know, shimmers getting stuck in there, and it's fine. It's all good. So we're just gonna kind of get the shimmer into the ink. All right, yeah. So this is the cheaper glass dip pen, one of my firsts. And you can kind of hear like glass on glass, which is why, like, you know, just be careful because you don't want to accidentally, you know, chip it by being a little bit aggressive. So this one, you can already kind of see the shimmer in the grooves. And yeah, so let's see how the shimmer sort of comes out onto paper, shall we? And like I kind of mentioned before, the grooves on this pen, the swirly design, even though it looks nice, it's not super comfortable for me to grip. It just feels sort of out of place, you know, but it is fine for quick writing sessions or just for swatching. This is called Blue Revelry. And we're just gonna say glass dip pen because I actually don't know what the brand it was labeled as. But you know, it's just one of those kind of nondescript brands. So yeah. And we'll do it on here as well. There's that sound. It's kind of glass on paper. I feel like this one's a little bit scratchy, a little bit, just like a tiny bit scratchier than the Herbin. And so, yeah, I might need to smooth it out a little bit with the micro sandpaper. You know, it happens over time of using a glass dip pen, I think. And so what I mentioned before actually is when you're using a glass dip pen for swatching, I love swatching by drawing. So it gives me a feel for the ink properties when I'm shading, but also when I'm doing loops and when you're writing down the ink name. But this is sort of my way of getting a little bit of a feel for the ink. And before I ink it up or I add it to a fountain pen, right? A glass dip pen is an easy way of testing out an ink or swatching it. The other thing I do when I swatch an ink, and you can do it with a glass dip pen, probably your cheap one, is use the other end to swatch, right? So that's another way it's handy, is kind of get that line. And then see how the ink pools as well. And then remember to get the ink off. Remember to rinse your glass dip pen. Usually after I rinse it off, I just wipe it off, like with a cloth or, you know, something soft that's not too harsh on the glass. And then you can let it dry in like the sunlight, or just, you know, leave it sitting out a little bit before you put it away in its box. Yeah, it is a pretty ink. I was just looking at it in terms of the shimmer as well. Ooh, I don't know if it's catching in the light a little bit there, but you sort of see that shimmer coming through. It's like a pink green shimmer. Oh, there we go. Kind of nice. And that's why I like using shimmer inks for painting and drawing with, because it just adds a little bit of interest, another layer of interest there. Very cool. I've been enjoying the sound of the pop when you clean out the blunt tip syringe. Or a good cap on an ink bottle. We love good sounds. Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, people would look at us like weirdos because we like the sound of things, you know, it's just, but stationery sounds. If you know, you know. So the third ink glass dip pen that I have, and my favorite, I love this glass dip pen so much, is from Glass Studio Aun. And it's just so pretty because when you put it down on like white paper or it catches sort of the light, you get that yellow, but also this sort of pearl like there where it's, you know, a darker background. You sort of get this like pearl look to it. Ah, it's just so pretty. Just so much artistry and thought went into this. And it's also very comfortable to hold. So if you're doing long writing sessions, like I mentioned before, getting a glass dip pen that has a more comfortable grip would be helpful. You're here for the stationery sounds. Yeah, welcome. We love stationery sounds. It is a gorgeous pen in colorway, right? Yeah, they have, and if you look on their Instagram, they have so many beautiful pens. It's really hard to choose. So maybe it was helpful that they only had like 5 to choose from by the time I got to their table at the pen show. Okay, so this one I'm going to use a standard ink with, and it's going to be this green Ferris Wheel Press Book of Botany. So it's just a standard green. We'll see what that looks like. Note to self, hit them up early on Friday of the show. 100%. When at the SF Pen show last year, like the all like VIP or all access tickets or whatever allowed you to go in a couple of hours earlier than general admission, an hour or two. And there was a lineup obviously to get in. As soon as I got in, like I was in that lineup, as soon as I got in, I kind of, you know, wandered over to the small room where these, the Glass Studio tables were. And there were huge lineups, long lineups. And so, you know, people who had pre-ordered or had sort of ordered beforehand to pick them up at the show, and also people who knew what they wanted, lined up and picked up multiples. Like I saw people walking away with like 2 or 3 of these glass dip pens. So, you know, whether or not they bought it for friends and other people, but also just like knowing what they wanted, right? Doing a little bit of research beforehand in terms of like the tip sizes maybe that they wanted to try, and also the designs. And yeah, they were gone by the time, like when I sort of left, they had none left. But they used the rest of the weekend, Glass Studio Aun, to talk to people about glass dip pens, let them try the different tip sizes. So, you know, go back when it's not so busy, or yeah, try out the glass dip pens just to get a feel for the different kinds. So yeah, I'm going to be very careful when I dip this in here. And this tip actually holds quite a bit of ink. So you can see the ink starts to run down a little bit, which is fine. It just means that, you know, there's going to be a lot of ink in the grooves. And I also love that it doesn't just sort of splat onto the page, right? It's not like a big blob of ink that is thrown onto your page. Thanks for following, Peggy Love. Welcome. And I like that it's like a consistent sort of line that you get. It's just like, it goes to show you the great construction of it. So this is right away, you get, you know, a nice, like this one's a medium tip. So you get that nice sort of medium line. But also like a lot of like details. You could do a lot of detail work with these types of nibs or tips. Right, it's great for like sketching, coloring in. And this ink is Ferris Wheel Press Book of Botany. And you could tell like it would be really fun to color things in as well, right? Like if you have a fountain pen friendly coloring book or coloring sheets, it would be fun to use glass tip pens, which you can rinse off and use different inks with and interchange. It'd be easy and fun to do that as well. So yeah, consistency in ink being put down on the page, and still, like, look how much ink there's still on this tip. A lot of ink. And so you can, this is why it's great to, like, you can draw with it for a little while. You can also write with it for a little while. So if you're, you know, you pick an ink that you like and you sort of keep writing, like a journal entry or a letter or something like that, I think you can just kind of keep writing and drawing with it. And I don't have an issue with the ink drying on the tip, even if you sort of like hold it for a little bit and then you're back at it. It lasts longer than a traditional calligraphy nib though. Yes, yes. And I have done calligraphy before where, you know, you're using like a Nico G nib or something like that, and they don't hold inks as long, I think, as a glass tip pen. But that's just my thought. Yeah, KGAD. It holds a lot of ink, surprisingly, maybe. Even the cheap glass tip pen, like, that's why it's sort of interesting to look at the design of the tip of the pen, is depending on the grooves, depending on sort of that length of the tip, it sort of dictates, I guess, how much ink it will be able to hold. And I just find that the construction of it here too is actually, this could hold a lot of ink. Like you could dip it into your bottle of ink or whatever you're using and write with it for a long time. And I think that's part of the artistry of glass tip pens, is that you could practice hand lettering and calligraphy and not have to constantly dip into ink, right? Which is just like, it sort of breaks up the flow of writing and what you're sort of creating. So used to have the calligraphy ones and couldn't finish a word. Yeah, I mean it, and it also depends on what inks you're using. So calligraphy, you're using, you know, thicker sort of consistency of ink, or like if you're using Winsor Newton, which are a little thinner. But yeah, it kind of depends on the ink you're using. It depends on the nib that you're using. But I totally agree. Just in general, my feeling is that glass tip pens hold more ink. And they're a great sort of like, they're a great standalone. They're fun to use by themselves. So as you can see, you know, some great drawing, you can get some great lines. You can use them for swatching or writing. I find they're also great sort of in between using a fountain pen or inking up a fountain pen. If you're just going to, like, you want to try out, you know, a sample ink and you want to get a feel for what that ink would look like if you're writing with it or something, using a glass tip pen to kind of test out an ink before you add it to a fountain pen, I think is kind of useful. So there are many ways that you use a glass tip pen. That's very handy. Yeah. Should try those again, but the calligraphy nibs didn't feel good. Yeah, I would, if you're into calligraphy and you're talking specifically like the metal calligraphy nibs, I would suggest trying different types of inks that are specific to calligraphy. So you can't use fountain pen inks for when you're using calligraphy nibs, because fountain pen inks are thinner. They're not like the thick consistency that you need for a calligraphy nib to hold the ink and also be able to put it down onto paper. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're looking for inks. Obviously, you also don't want to use calligraphy inks in fountain pens because they are too thick for fountain pens. And so those are things to consider there, is try different inks. Try different ink brands as well for calligraphy. Similar to fountain pens, right? Like you sort of find the fountain pen brands that work for you and for your fountain pens. Yeah. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So that's what it looks like. This was the Herbin. This one was sort of the cheaper glass dip pen. And then this one was from Glass Studio Aun. And for me, I like having different types of glass dip pens, and also not having to worry about constantly using, an expensive one if I'm just doing a quick swatch. So it's kind of nice to have the different types of glass dip pens. Yeah. And they're great for drawing, writing, different uses, and having at your desk as just like an alternative to, like, for example, if you have a kakimori nib, right? It's great for swatching, drawing, and writing, but I find that the kakimori nib can be scratchy, especially if you want to get those detailed lines, or you want to practice, the art of hand lettering, or you want to practice your art. I find that the kakimori nib, while I do draw with it when I do my painting and I'm adding detail onto the painting, I just find sometimes the experience of using a glass dip pen, the sound of it, like we said, the feel of it on paper, when you have a very smooth tip, is like none other. Like it's really enjoyable. It's really fun. It's fun to play with. As long as you're careful not to chip the glass, it's all good. So yeah. And it's great for coloring in too. Like I said, if you have like coloring pages and you just kind of want to dip into different inks, it's really easy to use the same glass dip pen and just rinse it out in water and wipe it off, and then you're good to go. So yeah, what do you think? Are you gonna try a glass dip pen? Are you gonna go out and get one? And also check them out if they're at your local, like if you're local to a pen show, or if you're able to go to a pen show, check them out. Look at their Instagram beforehand too, to see what kind of models, and maybe they have an explanation of the tip sizes that they offer. It's kind of good to be aware of those things beforehand too, in case they are busy, in case you don't have a lot of time to play around with your pens. Yeah, check them out, Bailey. Check them out at Chicago Pen Show. See what vendors there are, because it does depend on the show, on who's going to be there. And check what paint. Yeah, put a bug in their ear. I mean, the more that people ask, like I said, glass dip pens aren't as common in North America as they may be in Asian countries. Yeah, ask your local store. Ask around and see if anyone wants to carry glass dip pens, but maybe they weren't aware that people were interested in them. So it's worth asking, and it's worth trying out. In the meantime, yeah, if you're able to try a cheaper sort of alternative, or like a Fonte, or a Herbin, or Teranishi guitar, I've heard good things about. if you're able to try them out, then it's worth trying them out. So I was going to, oh, actually, before I talk about what I was going to talk about, I wanted to show you. So glass tip pens, you know, like they're fun, they're great. Like we said, you can write and draw with them. One way to practice using glass tip pens is to use them in your journals. And also what I do is I use them in my 5-year diary. So this is the Hobonichi 5-year Techo. I got this in 2022, so I'm on my 4th year of using it. And what I do is I try to push myself to every day do a quick floral sketch or floral drawing. And that's what I use the right-hand side for, because there's no date on this side, right? So if you're aware of the 5-year Techo, from Hobonichi, there's nothing on the right-hand side. And so I kind of did a little bit of painting, but what I try and do is use a glass tip pen to draw in it. And so using different inks, like I said, it's a great way of sampling inks. Or if you get a new bottle of ink, throw it into, you know, small vial or small sort of sample vial. And then that way you have it on hand and you can play with it. And yeah, so I kind of try and do that a little bit. And that way you're kind of practicing, right? I think one of the biggest factors of using a glass tip pen is feeling confident in using it. Because it's glass, we're aware that they're easy to break, right? We're constantly sort of reminding ourselves like, careful, it's precious, it's fragile. And so we're not as inclined to just like, you know, pick it up and use it. And I think part of that is just comfort level of being able to use it and knowing how you're gonna hold it, you're gonna grip it, and just practicing using it with ink, cleaning it off, and then storing it. And I think that confidence comes from practice and using it consistently. And I kind of like just like I have a glass tip pen on my desk that I can just grab, pick out an ink vial of ink, get you using your ink as well, and doing a little bit of drawing. So that's how I use it in my 5-year. Which one came with the mesh pad? So that's the Herbin. So they included a little micro sandpaper, and I think it actually says on here in French, because they're in French. Several lines can be written without dipping. So they kind of explain the glass tip pen. It's handcrafted and therefore unique. When the nib is slightly blunt, do not hesitate to use fine sandpaper grade 400. Rub gently the nib on the paper and the pleasure of writing will be renewed. So yes, I've had that happen before where it sort of got a little bit scratchy, and I guess it means that it's blunt from use. And so you kind of gently smooth out the nib. And yeah, it's fine now. It's great. So that's that one. And then I guess, I mean, once you have this type of fine grade sandpaper, you can use it on your other glass tip pens as well. And then like I mentioned before, if you get it from a glass studio or from, you know, an artist who hand makes these glass tip pens, they may have, you know, like they can smooth this out for you. And if you run into issues, you can always go back to them, depending on where they are. And then talk to them about getting it smoothed out again. And also, if you end up getting a glass tip pen where the tip size is, you know, too fine for you, depending on the glass studio, they would be able to help you make it, you know, broader or stubbier or whatever the case is. So yeah. You're planning on going to the Triangle Pen Show, KGAD? Yeah. Just got to plan the travel. Maybe they have something. I mean, it's worth checking out the website for the pen show and seeing who the vendors are and if they may have glass dip pens. If it's not like a specific glass studio who's a vendor, maybe there are vendors who are going to have glass dip pens available to try. Or even if it's like a stationery retailer, sometimes they may bring glass dip pens or glass nibs to try out. So that was kind of my spiel on glass dip pens, and all that to say is, like, don't be afraid of using glass dip pens for like everyday drawing and writing, especially if you like swatching with them. Then I think it's worth taking them out and spending more time with them, right? Like really getting to know them. So I'm going to do a little bit of coloring in. If you know, or if you don't know, Olive Octopus has these ink pony drawings or images available online that you could print out and you can color them in. Pink Pony Club. Ink Pony Club. Let me put in. I'm going to do a shout out to Olive Octopus and also inkpony.club is where you go. Ink Pony Club. So you can download these and you can use like HP Premium 32 pound, I think, is sort of like a great paper for fountain pen inks or, you know, like coloring in. And so you can print them out and you can color them in. Super fun. And you can be part of the club. So join the club. Yeah, that's a great idea, Bailey. Have your kids color some and then send them to Lisa for some fun ones back. Yeah. Or take photos and share them. And so on Friday, I'm actually going to paint a couple of these with fountain pen ink. So if you join my live stream on Friday, we're going to be doing a little bit of painting. But in the meantime, I am just going to color this one in. This one's TRP. I got this from Lisa at the California Pen Show. And I had to write down what the paper was because otherwise I would forget. So let's actually use this handy postcard from Job's journal. Thanks, Job. And let's do some coloring with glass dip pens. So let's see. This one, I liked the green and the blue because they were fun. So let's do some shimmer inks, shall we? You'll have to miss Fridays. How dare you, Bailey? That's okay. You can join the replay club. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much. And if you joined at any point, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. I love when people, you know, are like, just engage. Just engage in any way that you can is appreciated. So this is the, let me see. Actually, I want to get some of that shimmer on here. And then let's kind of color in. It's like, yeah, it's like coloring in with like a, you know, like a fine nib on a fountain pen, or I think it is actually smoother than coloring with a kakimori nib. Like a stainless steel or, you know, a metal nib. I just find it's a lot smoother and it still puts down a lot of ink. And I love seeing the properties of the ink when it pools like that. So we'll start to see some of the shimmers coming through. And yeah, like we sort of said earlier too, glass tip pens hold a lot of ink, surprisingly maybe. Like I kind of always thought glass tip pens would just put down a lot of ink from the start, from the get-go, and then you kind of have to keep dipping it. But it's more that it puts down a consistent line, but it's up to you to rotate the pen to get the ink flowing again. So if you're just constantly gripping it in one hold and you're using it in that way, the ink, you're gonna get the ink, but it will start to, like, it moves down that groove, right? And so rotating it will give you a little bit more ink, and then rotating it. So you're kind of balancing out how much ink you're using. And just keep that in mind if, you know, you're kind of having a finicky time with glass tip pens, is rotate the ink. Once you start the ink, like once you get the ink going, it should flow consistently. You shouldn't have an issue with that. A little bit of blue hair. My oldest likes fountain pens. Youngest is a hot mess. His room always looks like a tornado blew through it. Yeah. Yeah, you kind of have to have some sort of storage solution for fountain pens and glass tip pens as well. Inky, my youngest is in kindergarten and a lefty. You let her make dots with a broad Twisby last night. So my kids are, I have twins, and they're 6 years old. And I got them into fountain pens probably last year sometime. We went to Toronto because I'm originally from Toronto. And so we were visiting family and we went to Wonder Pens, which is a stationery shop in Toronto full of wonderful inks and fountain pens and all sorts of goodies. And I got them platinum preppies. And so one of my girls, she loves purple and the other one likes pink. And so I got them, you know, colored preppies, and they love them. So they're like, this is your fountain pen, right? So that's what I kind of did, was I protect my stash by getting them their own sort of safe, cheaper option. So yeah, get them into fountain pens if they, you know, if they have a place to store it and take care of it, but definitely get them in. And yeah, give them, you know, maybe not glass tip pens, I don't know about that, but definitely fountain pens. Give them a cheap and safe alternative, and let them have fun. Enable. Once you put ink down with the nib with the glass tip pen, once you use the tip to put down nib, you can also sort of spread that ink around a little bit to get those broader, wider lines as well. So it's kind of like a paintbrush in that way, which is nice. Maybe we'll do the hoof screen too. It holds so much ink. Like I haven't even used all of the ink. Maybe I'll write down the ink name. Still has a lot of ink, which is cool. It's all good. Inky, your 5th grader is already a fountain pen and planner nerd. Yes, that's my goal with my kids, is to have them be into stationery from the get-go. So they're fully aware of planners and journals, and then I can enable them and get them theirs. So for the horse, or for the pony, I'm going to use this beautiful Sailor Afternoon Tea. You considered getting her a Lamy ABC. Oh, for a lefty, yeah. One of my kids is a lefty too, and I have to think about that sometimes when I'm like with fountain pens and things like that, right? So I love seeing the shading of inks. When it's pooling like that, it's really pretty. Someone said the rubber grip on it gets gross easy though. Yeah, I have heard of that actually. On the Lamy, yeah. I have a Pelican twist, yeah. It's meant for lefties and righties, but the grip is annoying to me. Yeah, I haven't tried it. I've seen it though. I'm gonna do a little, I'm gonna cheat a little. I'm gonna add a little bit of ink like this. There we go. I love this ink shade. Sailor Afternoon Tea. It's actually really nice. Bye, Jessica. Have a nice day. Thank you so much for joining. Of course, I will keep you company whenever, wherever. Especially if I'm drawing and painting and doing fun stuff. Triangular grip. Yeah, the Pelican. Yeah, I feel, I mean, even with Lamy, right? Like they sort of have the grip for, like to sort of guide you in terms of gripping it. So It is interesting though whether or not it caters to a lefty when you have like a set grip, especially if you're right-handed. You feel like your grip is wrong. The way we grip things, right, is it's very subjective. And when there's a pen that is meant to guide you on how to hold it, it's sometimes tough. Like if we have a set grip and it doesn't feel comfortable, even if it's sort of like the right way to do it. If that's not the way you grip your pens, then it's sort of tough, isn't it? But it's kind of easy. It's, I guess in a way it's meant to help people with their grip, or help kids too. When it's kid friendly, it's because, you know, you want to help them grip their pen so that they don't have issues with writing or issues with their hands, like holding pens and stuff. So kind of makes sense. So yeah, a little bit of fun. Oh, I didn't write down the blue ink, but that's okay. We had a little bit of fun with inks, with glass dip pens. Which one did I use it? Okay, let's dip this one. Oh, I think it was that. A little bit of blotting paper because I don't want to smudge. Blue Revelry. Beep. Those are some fun inks. So that's my first ink pony for the Ink Pony Club. A little bit of blue. Not sure if the shimmer is showing through because I didn't actually move the shimmer around too much from the bottom of the ink vial. So I think I got more blue than I did any of the shimmer, which is okay. Some blue, some green, some brown. And then I also find with this, with the cheaper pens, the way the glass is constructed, there are little cracks in it. And I think that's just like, you know, over time with use, and also, you know, maybe they don't smooth it out as much as maybe like one of these pens. So yeah, when you're kind of like wiping it off, I kind of notice it catching a little bit. So again, like some things you can smooth out, the tip especially, but it's just one of those, like, just remember. Yeah. Well, that's kind of it. Unless you want to chat about something else, but that's kind of my experience and take on glass dip pens. And I feel like, there we go. I feel like people get intimidated sometimes because the utensil might seem like, obviously, you know, you don't want to break it or you don't want to chip it. And it sort of becomes this intimidating tool. But I think they're fun. I think they're worth trying. And if you are worried about damaging it, then definitely go with a cheaper option, especially when you're starting out or you don't think you're going to use it as often. I think it's just worth having and having some fun with in general, especially if you're into like the different like nib styles and nib types apart from fountain pens. It's great for swatching and playing with inks. don't have the box for this, but that's okay. So yeah, so that's kind of it. I'm gonna head out. Thank you so much for joining. Like I said on Friday, if you are able to join or if you want to watch the replay, I'll be doing some painting with inks, and we'll do these ink ponies. And if you want to join the Ink Pony Club, it's just a fun inside joke. Definitely check out All of Octopus, and also check out, thanks for joining, Skogsy. Always fun to have you here. There you go. Yeah, download the coloring sheets or download the design onto paper and do some fun coloring with ink or whatever else you want to use to color it, and then share it out, because it's fun to see. It's fun to see different people sort of take on the ink pony. I love that All of Octopus started this. It's so much fun. So yeah, that's what we'll do on Friday. It's going to be super chill, just chatting, just hanging out, playing with inks. Next week, see you next week. Oh, okay, I will see you next week, Bailey. It's always good to have you. And Gama Gama, thank you so much for joining and for watching. Next week, I may actually stream on Monday and Wednesday, because Friday I'll be out. So it may be a Monday-Wednesday thing. And I'm also going to be talking about my planners and journals. So now that February is done, I do an inventory, or sort of like a reflection on how I'm using my planners and journals and notebooks. And so next week we're going to tackle that. We're going to talk about planners and journals. So yeah, fun. Yeah, All of Octopus. Yay, pony. Too much work today, but it's fine. Thank you so much for joining and for watching regardless. And I will get the other ink ponies colored in as well. Just having a little bit of fun. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining. And go play with stationery. Go have fun. And I'll see you in the next stream. Or if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for watching. Bye.